If you asked me why I love Mega Man, I could give you a full Moby Dick's worth of reasons. But if you asked me why I first got into it, I'd shuffle around and avoid eye contact while I tried to come up with a good answer until one of us walked away awkwardly. I suppose my first memory of being a certified Mega Man liker was when I was hanging out in my childhood bedroom with my friend Jonathan. His name might have actually been Joe or George or just John, but I'm pretty sure it was a J sound. What I can remember very clearly, however, is we were playing his copy of Mega Man X that he brought over to my house. Now, I knew about Mega Man from Nintendo Power magazine, but I'd never personally played one. He was showing me the game and was running through Chill Penguin stage. I asked my friend Jay why he liked this game so much, and his response was, I don't know. I like the way the robots blow up, I guess. A fair point, I suppose, but a little too wordy for my tastes. At any rate, a few minutes later he was able to demonstrate his point. He fired the last charged shot into that icy Penguigo, and it began to explode somewhere between 10 and 100 times, and to his credit, it did look rad as hell. Before then, I'd never really thought about why I liked a thing beyond saying it's fun or it's cool, but Jonathan made a pretty good point that day. You can like something even if it's only for a simple reason. To this day, I also like the way the robots explode. In spite of me being such a gigantic fan of the Blue Bomber, there are actually a few titles I've never played. I wanted to change that this year with probably the biggest gap in my collection, Mega Man X Command Mission. Command Mission is a genre-bucking continuation of the Mega Man X series. It hangs up the coat of fast-paced action platforming and shooting, and puts on a cozy autumnal sweater of tactical combat and menu management. This wasn't the first time the series went down a new path. There have been a few irregular games in the Mega Man series, and I'm not even talking about Irregular Hunter X. There was a racing game called Battle and Chase, there was the sports powerhouse Mega Man Soccer, and if you can believe it, there was even a Monopoly-like game called Wily and Light's Rock Board. This wasn't even the first time the series became an RPG. That honor goes to Mega Man Battle Network a full 3 years before Command Mission. RPGs actually make up the second biggest genre of Mega Man games, according to this arbitrary list I turned into a pie chart. Curiously though, Command Mission is usually left out of the discussion in fan communities. Of course, you'll always see a few people being like, "Hey, remember Command Mission? That was cool, huh?" But then you see it's been the same two people talking about it in an ancient game FAQs thread for a decade, and you move on with your life because you've got better things to do than to listen to those creeps. I actually played it myself back when it was new, but I guess it didn't impress me then, and I dropped it for other games that year. Turns out, that was a big mistake, because this game actually owns bones, dude, and now I'm the creep who's going to talk about it for another decade. If I had to guess why it didn't do too well in the main Mega Man fandom, it was a combination of being the game that came out after X7, which I won't explain any further because this is a no bummer zone, in that it didn't offer the sort of gameplay that the X series was known for. I am here, however, to argue that not only is Command Mission a good RPG, it is a good Mega Man X game, and that is an important distinction. Let me break it down for you. Mega Man is a series with over 60 major titles. It's had comic books and TV shows and toys and crossovers, maybe one day down the road a movie with Vin Diesel. But if you took a sledgehammer and went all John Wick on the foundation Mega Man is built on, you would find exactly 3 things. You'd find jumping, shooting, and sliding. Just like me, Mega Man was born in 1987, although he was way more impressive than I was at that age. All I knew how to do was make poops, but he could already jump and he could shoot. With those 2 verbs, he was able to kickstart his legacy. By his 3rd game, he added a final move to his repertoire, a slide that really rounded out his traversal. Because those 3 moves are so simple and so robust at the same time, Capcom has been able to keep every game feeling fresh to this day. When the original Mega Man X was developed, they kept the jumping and shooting and sliding, but they decided to take the hardcore knob and crank that bad boy all the way up. Mega Man was no longer a cute little robot boy. He grew up into a cute little robot man. The main X series is numbered 1 through 8, with Command Mission being a one-off story that didn't get a number. It came out in 2004 on the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo GameCube. It's not considered part of the series canon, but then again, not a lot of the games are. The details about that are unimportant, but there are 2 things I want to convey to you about Command Mission. Like I said, not only is it a good RPG worthy of being looked at with reverie like its genre brothers, it's also a good Mega Man X game. Now, listen, I'm not a smart enough person to look at something critically and meditate on it. I'm not going to compare and contrast the narrative themes to the times they were written in. I'm not about that life. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm basic. I'm very easy to please. I like it when the numbers go up. I like managing loadouts to achieve big damage and effective heals, and gosh dang it, this game was an absolute delight to play. So, enough chit-chatting about history, let's jack into this bad boy and get all up in its guts. Man. Command Mission takes your standard JRPG formula, gooses it in a couple of places, and wraps up before it overstays its welcome. You start out with X. You're on some mission to find a MacGuffin or investigate something. You get split up from your homies and it's off to the races immediately. Gameplay is split between walking around and random battles, like RPGs. You've played video games before. You've got a life energy gauge and a Wii bar, which stands for weapon energy. It serves the same function as magic points from other RPGs, but here's the first twist to the genre. Every time your character starts their turn, you get a handful of Wii for free, and it's good for a couple of things. Every character has 2 slots for sub-weapons, which cost Wii to use, and every character has an action trigger, which they can use as long as they have over 50% weapon energy, though it's more effective the closer you get to 100%. X's action trigger, for example, hits every enemy, and at 100 is a guaranteed critical hit. Very useful for clearing out weak enemy mobs in one blow. Managing weapon energy and deciding when to gamble at all is the core decision at any given moment, and it never stops carrying weight and risk from beginning to end. If weapon energy is like magic points, then sub-weapons are your spells. There's a huge variety of sub-weapons in the game, mostly taking the form of missiles that your dudes can shoot out of their chest. You've got elemental missiles, good for exploiting enemy weaknesses, which causes them to be knocked out of defensive stance or from charging up big attacks. You've got missiles that cause debuffs, eating away at enemy shields or making them slow so their turns don't come around as often. You've even got missiles that, I guess, rummage through the bad guy's pockets and bring it back to you or something. Whatever the case, that's how you steal rare items and weapons from dudes. The nifty thing is that any sub-weapon can be equipped to any character, meaning you can assign certain roles to anyone you like. Remember how in Final Fantasy X, if you spent long enough you could fill out every character's sphere grid and they'd all be able to use every move in the game? It's like that in a way, but don't think you'll just settle on your favorite 3 characters for the whole game. The developers did the smart thing and made every character's action trigger completely unique to them, and it's this fact that keeps the party rotating so that everyone gets a turn on the front line. This cute little cinnamon roll is named Cinnamon. She's your dedicated healer. Her action trigger has you jamming on the C-stick to fill out hearts, with each one granting 10% of your team's life back. Marino's power is opening up a roulette wheel. She has several functions like lifesteal or hitting for 5 times normal damage, but I mostly used her ability to steal with a 100% success rate by lining up these treasure chests. Zero's action trigger picks out an enemy and challenges them to a round of Street Fighter, but then he just starts mashing out dragon punches like a total scrub, and this causes the enemy to rage quit out of their entire life. Sometimes in other RPGs, I'll just let a character sit on the bench for the whole game, but the fact that everyone in this game had a practical skill to bring to the table made me want to spend time with all of them, and I ended up forming a bond with each one, and I like that. Speaking of healing in RPGs, there is miraculously very little item management in this game. You're not going to find things like potion, high potion, X potion, ether, high ether. Look, you get the point. Health management is done quite simply, and it is always done in terms of percents. You can just sort of judge how much you need to heal based on what your guys look like in the battle timeline. You'll look at it and think to yourself, oh, they seem to be at about half health, I'll just pop this sub-tank for 50% and bingo bango bongo, we're back in it, baby! And you just saved yourself 30 seconds of mental math trying to balance out how many juices you might want to drink. You know, speaking of juice, sub-tanks are kind of like the Estus flasks from Dark Souls. Your reach in each dungeon is dictated by how much juice you've got left in the can, which turns into a gamble. How far do you think you can drive with only 1/8 of a tank? If you heal up, you can probably get a couple of rooms further, but you might just be that much further away from the last save point you saw. Maybe if you win a few more battles, your team will level up and you'll get full health bars automatically from that? That'd be nice, but what if it's just smarter to give up and be comforted by the friendly bed? Quite the decision to make here, isn't it? By the way, this is called foreshadowing. I'm not going to use it correctly in this video, but just so you know, that's what they call it. There's one more combat beat I want to hit here, and it's called Hyper Mode. On top of their unique action triggers, everyone gets their own Hyper Mode. Activating it sends your dudes into overdrive, giving them a fresh new fit to fight in and bumping up their stats. They all hit harder, their turns come faster, and they charge a buttload of weapon energy per turn. Por ejemplo, Massimo here gets a shiny golden armor when he goes hyper, and Spider turns into the Trick Star and goes invisible so he can't be hurt. Knowing when to pop hyper mode is another gamble to take, and can sometimes be the difference between making it home safe or loading your last save. Getting back to the story for a minute, X fights a few battles, meets back up with Zero, and has a fight with a mini-boss named the Hippopressor. I'd like to talk to you for a minute about Hippopressor. This single battle was the moment I decided I loved this game. Not only is it the first time you get to use Zero in this game, but the fight tests you on how well you've been paying attention and what you've learned, and teaches you what to expect going forward. The Hippo is constantly threatening to launch a big missile from its back, and the only way to stop that from happening is to attack it. Letting it go off does huge damage to your group, so you're learning to manage threats while also working on chopping down the big guy. You could use Zero's sub-weapon, which makes each of his attacks hit twice, but he's not always 100% accurate with it. You can gamble on using an action trigger for a sure thing, but that also pushes whoever uses it back on the timeline as they regain their footing from taking such a big swing. This fight is made entirely of risk-reward, and it's cool as hell. At a certain point, Hippopressor's head blows up, and its neck just turns into a big gun, so now it's doing way more damage every time it takes a turn. The game is teaching you to expect the unexpected. Fights can and will go in weird directions. The mechanics alone aren't what make it great though. I love the way this big chunky boy looks. He's cute and round and bright, and he's a hippo. I could do without the oppression part, but the fact that his name is a clever portmanteau makes him kind of more than the sum of his parts in my book. I love him, and I absolutely want a plushie of him. Like, straight up, even if I have to teach myself how to crochet or something, that shit's going down. But I digress. Hey, hi there, Adam here, breaking into my own video. Real quick, I want everyone watching this to give me a round of applause wherever you are, sitting in your own home, sitting in your cubicle, in your truck, I don't know, I don't care. I just wrote 3 paragraphs with the name Hippopressor, which has about as many P's you can put into it as humanly possible, and I only clipped on one of them, so give me your praise, please. Thank you. Back to the video now, sorry. X and Zero make it to the top of the tower they're in, getting betrayed by the only new character you've seen so far named Shadow. Shocking, absolutely nobody. Then this big, cool, Metal Gear Solid style cutscene plays out where all the future bosses show up and wreck your day. It really is awesome to see these powerful dorks beat you up. It's such a basic storytelling trope, but it's so effective because you just want to go out and level up so you can punch them all in their big dumb faces. Also, I have to tell you something I found super funny, and to demonstrate just how dry and out of whack my sense of humor is. In that cutscene, Zero gets totally defenestrated off the tower, just straight up gets yeeted out of existence. After the cutscene is over, the game lets you know Zero has left the party, and it's phrased like he had any goddamn choice in the matter, and it's so funny to me. I'm telling y'all, this game is good, man. Anyway, that sets up the story and marks the end of the tutorial dungeon, throwing you into the rest of the game. There's no world map that you're crossing, instead you're doing dungeon runs the whole game. Your home base is a big old tower populated with NPCs and shops, and you get sent out on away missions to investigate and assassinate. You'll teleport in at the edge of a themed world and work your way into that delicious Maverick Center. I love the NPCs in this game, and for a very specific reason that probably only I appreciate. Every single character is introduced with a title that describes their personality, and it is almost universally followed by a block of text that directly matches their title. There's man who can't hide his shock, expressing his shock. There's elder who pities woman who pities woman. And freedom-relishing man who does indeed relish his freedom. There are some exceptions of note as well, such as woman screaming at the sky who's not really screaming anything, and maintenance bed. Let me tell you about maintenance bed. I have never met a single friendlier character in all of gaming than maintenance bed, and it only has 3 lines of dialogue in the entire game. It tells you good night when you go to sleep. It tells you good morning when you wake up. And if you decide not to use the bed at all, it just tells you to take care of yourself. And I just adore this bed. Compared to other RPGs, there's just enough NPCs in the world to help fill in the story, but not too many that it feels like a chore to visit them all. And I really appreciated that balance. Side note here, because I really didn't have any other place in the video to put it, but it's something I definitely have to show you. In one of the outside rooms of the hub area, there's this big machine floating in the air that looks like, and it doesn't really seem to have any purpose other than to just sit there and pump. And you know I love it, of course I do, it's funny as hell. The dungeons in this game are essentially big puzzle boxes. One has you redirecting lasers around a grid to hit a specific spot. One is a gauntlet setup that lets you choose an easy or difficult path, giving you rewards the more you challenge yourself. Each dungeon is one chapter, and that really makes it feel like you're playing through episodes of a cartoon. There's even a splashy title card for every chapter with a fun little tune. Inside the dungeons, there's these little treasure crystals everywhere you collect by colliding into them. I like this because it keeps the flow of forward momentum, and it feels satisfying to crack them open as opposed to just opening a wooden chest. Getting all of the treasure means solving even more of the tertiary dungeon puzzles, and proving you understand the concept the dungeon is trying to teach you. Even though the game is just home base plus dungeons, the running around feels incredibly satisfying to do. Every character has these big, meaty robot stomps that sound like their giant feet are suctioning to the ground under their weight. Performing a dash sounds like every 80s mecha anime robot firing up its engine. I adore the way Mega Man has to lean his whole body forward right before engaging his thrust because of just how powerful his big boots are. The whole effect is just perfect. Moving on, I want to talk about something that is incredibly easy to miss, and not just in this game, but all video games. It's something you've experienced, but you have to teach yourself to look for it in order to be able to recognize it. It's a little something called storytelling through gameplay. After you've completed the opening and set up camp in the Resistance HQ, you start talking to the NPCs in the area because that's another thing you do in video games. One or two of them mention a hero called Steel Massimo, saying how strong he is and how much they look up to him. Soon after, you are sent on your first official mission, and you run into a robot who introduces himself as Steel Massimo.
Hey! Wait, you guys aren't Rebellion Army?
I'm X. Our resistance opposes the army.
Who are you? Me? I'm Massimo. Call me Steel Massimo.
And he joins your party since you work for the same people. At this time, a few red flags wave at you from a distance. This guy sure seems nervous, and he's only, level 3? At this point, even though it's still early in the game, your dudes are about twice his level already. What's the deal? Well, It turns out this guy has a complicated situation, and it's made all the more sweet by this early foreshadowing, and not just through dialogue or cutscenes, but by feeling that disconnect in the way Massimo feels to play. There's one other notable time the game pulls this sort of trick, but in order to talk about it, I'm going to have to give you some contextless, spoilers. I really don't think knowing this will affect your enjoyment of the story, but if you want to keep it a surprise, skip to this timecode on screen. I'll give you a few seconds to scramble to hit the pause button in case you were doing something else. And so, this game takes place right after Mega Man X7, in which the third S-Class hunter, Axel, was introduced. In the same way Mega Man is famous for taking his enemies' powers to use as ammunition,
Now I've got your power!
Axel can transform into any robot he's dealt with. When he's introduced in this game, he's wearing someone else's face, and when he joins your party, his ability lets him transform into any boss character you've beat, allowing him to pull some wild stunts. But again, this gameplay is planting a new idea into your head. Some Reploids can be other people, and act so very convincingly. I'll leave it at that. It's a clever enough beat, and the fact that you are commonly using it as a battle tactic helps keep it in the back of your mind, and I think that's neat. Generally, the writing in this game is pretty alright. It delivers what it needs to, puts out a few ideas to noodle over, and wraps up before supper time. Just don't go in expecting Kafka or Kefka, and you'll have a good time. There's a few occasions where I think it's funny, and that's what they were going for, and there's a couple of times where I think it's unintentionally good. Having said that, I would like to present to you my second favorite cutscene in this game.
Wow, that's the Force Metal Generator?
The Force Metal Generator is me!
Whoa. So, I guess I have to steal you then.
Steal me?
Yep, it's my job, don't you remember? Now, come with me, Cinnamon.
Please excuse me for a moment. Hello? Is this famous fanfiction repository an archive of our own? Hey, it's me, your cousin Adam. Remember that new, super gay vibe you were looking for? Well, listen to this! As I mentioned earlier, as far as RPGs go, it sticks close to the traditional formula while putting its own spin on it here and there, which is all it really needed to be. So, that's all well and good, but we have another criteria to look at. Is this a good Mega Man X game? Remember when I was saying all that stuff about jumping and shooting, eventually turning into wall kicking and dashing? Does Command Mission really carry that torch too? Kinda, at least in the parts that matter to me. Obviously, I'm not here to propose this is secretly an action platformer game, but I do think it's worthy of the X legacy. When I envision X in my mind palace, I see themed levels. I think about the flowing movement of kicking up walls and dashing down slopes. I hear the badass butt rock guitar soundtrack and big flashy explosions and bosses with really intricate patterns that demand mastery of the controller until you learn the boss weaknesses and just sort of be like, bleh, 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 and then the boss dies and you win. And look, I know Mega Man has had level themes from the very beginning, but I'd say the ones in X are designed to be based on tangible, real-world-ish themes as opposed to the ones from the classic series. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate Top Man's commitment to hiding weed in his glass walls, but that's a way different vibe from Storm Eagle's Airport. Both are good, X's are just different. Back to the point, when I played Command Mission, it hit every checkbox in its own way. The music isn't guitar-based butt rock from before, instead moving to a more synthetic, butt electronica. Look, I don't know from music, I just know what I like, and for the most part, Command Mission's music slaps. It's pretty bumpin' at all times, unless it's trying to set a silly or somber tone, and it is almost the very definition of the word panache, that every random encounter is introduced with a slammin' guitar riff. Which I think more than qualifies this as an X game. Also, it commits one of the greatest cardinal virtues in all of gaming and anime. It uses the opening song during the finale episode, and it will make you feel electric when you hear it.
それが電源突破それがグレン・ラガン俺のドリルは線を作るドリルだ
As far as movement goes, I've talked about it a little bit, but when you're in the hub world, you have these nice straight hallways mixed with spiraling ramps that honestly do feel good to dash through. There's also this cool lighting effect in some hallways that's weirdly remarkable. This room has small slatted windows letting light through, and as you go, your character model will light up appropriately. It's not exactly advanced technology, even for 2004, but it's small details like this that show you how much love was put into it. That freedom of movement extends to the dungeons, provided the encounter rate treats you kindly, and they are stuffed to bursting with treasure crystals for you to smash into and grabble up all the goodies they hold. Assuming your party is appropriately equipped and leveled up, even random battles feel like an absolute breeze when you charge a big action trigger on turn 1 and just completely glass everything in front of you. Although Mega Man isn't getting boss powers like he used to, instead, everyone is getting stronger all the time just by playing. Your squad can absolutely wreck shop when they level up, and over time your action triggers themselves get bigger and better. Massimo's action trigger is a simple button mashing minigame. He starts with 2 buttons to press, each filling up an energy bar, adding a damage multiplier and inflicting status effects depending on how full. Over time, he gets to use all 4 face buttons, more than doubling the already massive damage, and putting your Mario Party muscle memory to the test. When you light them all up, it's a thing of beauty. Looking at the dungeons again, they very much stuck to their design playbook from the earlier X games. Each level is very much a specific and thought-out location relevant to either the lore of the world or the Maverick you're gonna fight. You've got the Godeel Laboratory, which was used to study a plot-important type of metal, and where you find this horrible platypus man. A place called the Gimme-Alla Mine is used for extracting that metal. Your first mission is at a building called Tiana Camp, which is for, no bombers. So, themes. The bosses also tend to fit my definition of an X game. They have their own AI logic and break some of the rules of traditional combat, so learning their patterns and playing the combat system competently is necessary for victory. Take, for example, this Buddha robot-looking guy who kinda sounds like Sundowner from Metal Gear Revengeance.
Everything is for some dumb ideal. It's all a fancy pipe dream. The ends justify the means, and the one with the power wins in the end.
What about all the good things war has done for us? Why don't we ever hear speeches about that? Jobs, technology, a common purpose?
This guy likes to summon these 2 little floaty guys for help. When his turn starts, his AI checks to see how many he has left. If he has no friends on the field, he's guaranteed to use the summon. If he only has one left, there's a chance he'll summon the other, or he'll use a regular attack. Knowing just this allows you to constantly be making decisions. Do you spend a little time killing off the adds, forcing him to waste his turn, or do you kill only one, so there's only 2 enemy combatants on the field, allowing you to take less damage overall and focus fire on the boss? Have you noticed how often I've used the words gamble or decision in this video? This is probably a non-controversial statement, but if you ask me, decisions are what make video games fun, and this game has a ton of them all the time. All this to say, while it's true I wasn't pressing buttons the exact same way as the old side-scrolling days, this game felt like Mega Man X to me, and not just because it fits some checklist I just made up, but other stuff too, and I want to gush about it for a minute. I like the sound of everyone's big stompy feet. I adore the cute, rounded enemy designs that are the signature of any Mega Man game. Even this new enemy they made up to be like the mascot character of Command Mission? These guys fit like a glove with all the robots you know from the earlier games, and whenever they use them in cutscenes, it's hilarious. You see, they've got these really tiny legs, so instead of animating them walking, they give them short vampire hops to get to where they need to be. It's great. I also like how they followed every other X game's footsteps and made the final boss some chump who tries to ascend to robot godhood and becomes a total abomination. It's funny every time I see it. There's this radical series of cutscenes about halfway through where X, Axel, and Zero are all in the same room. X and Zero do their cool robot fist bump, and Axel talks about the 3 S-class hunters being together again.
All the Class S hunters together again. May as well just beg us for mercy. Curses!
I need to be honest with you. The day I saw that, if I had not slept nearly as well as I did, or drank enough water, or been as emotionally stable as I was, if any of my needs weren't in absolute tip-top shape, I would have cried there. I am an easy crier, and I promise you it would have happened. Instead, I let out a, "Yeah, boy!" and pumped my fist in the air for like 20 seconds. And remember, Axel was in exactly 1 game before this point, and it wasn't even a particularly good one, and this scene still rules in spite of that. He still feels like part of the team I've known for 7 whole games. That's how good Command Mission is at what it does. It was the first good 3D Mega Man game. Wait, no, make that second. No. Third. 4th best 3D Mega Man game. And speaking of the number 4, you know the famous scene from X4 where Zero is holding his girlfriend Iris in his arms and he shouts, "What are we fighting for?" And it's from an era where voice direction was barely a thing.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
Command Mission gives Zero a chance to redo his line, and he nails it. And it's so funny because I don't think it was written intentionally, but here we are. Time is a flat circle, but for once it's a good thing. If nothing else, I want you to understand how much X and the crew mean to me, and how absolutely wonderful it was to play this game after all this time, when my appreciation has been honed to a razor's edge and I can enjoy this with no reservation. The point of this video series is to try to share with you the lens I see video games through, why I like them, why I even play games to begin with. I hope I painted a good enough picture of how I see this incredible game. I definitely recommend you check out Command Mission for yourself. And if you do, please, enjoy it. I sure did. Hey, thanks for watching. This has been an incredibly fulfilling project to work on. I've learned a ton of new skills, and I'm already writing for episode 2, which is going to be about the King's Field series from Software. It's the spiritual ancestor to Dark Souls, and it is buck wild. I'll be researching the game on Twitch if you'd like to catch it live or just have a chat. It's always a pleasure and a treat getting to talk to you folks. At any rate, that's all she wrote for this episode, so I'll sign it out with this. Be nice to people. Most importantly, yourself. Peace.